truth. It's in the presence of truth. There must be a destruction of the gates of the gods in the lives of men in order for them to not become their own puppet masters. We've always thought of darkness as having the ability to hold strings, but the truth is spiritual ventriloquism is when we are the dummies holding the strings, animating our own way, and don't even realize it. And it's all a game. The enemy sets up these gates, these fortresses in the hearts and minds of men and the souls of men. This is why we have to allow the Father to restore our souls. This is why the gates have to be destroyed, because those things are set up as ramparts against the will and the plan of Yah concerning the life of men. Truth. It's in the presence of truth. There must be a destruction of the gates of the gods in the lives of men in order for them to not become their own puppet masters. We've always thought of darkness as having the ability to hold strings, but the truth is spiritual ventriloquism is when we are the dummies holding the strings, animating our own way, and don't even realize it. And it's all a game. The enemy sets up these gates, these fortresses in the hearts and minds of men and the souls of men. This is why we have to allow the Father to restore our souls. This is why the gates have to be destroyed, because those things are set up as ramparts against the will and the plan of Yah concerning the life of men. Good morning, everybody. This is Apostle Crystal. I'm excited to be here with you once again. We're here again for another amazing revelatory time in Torah. It's an amazing time. My brother is here with us this morning, and I am excited that you are here with us this morning. Go ahead and invite somebody, share this word with someone. I believe it's going to be a blessing. We're going to talk about destroying the gates of the gods. And as you saw, my secondary title had something to do with spiritual ventriloquism. I don't know where the Father, he just comes up with these things. It's so amazing to me because it blesses me as much as it's blessing you. The realization that we're expecting some external force or some external person to regulate the strings of our life when he's given us the power to do things a certain way to get certain outcomes. It's just amazing. I would play that beginning over and over again because when I said it the first time, it began to bless me, it began to shift some things in me personally. And so I'm just excited to share this time with you this morning. We're going to talk about the gates. You know, that's a hot topic for us. The gates, the eye gate, the ear gate, the gate of the mind, the mouth gate. All of these things are really important, and we are actually in the age of the opening. So this is very relevant for where we are right now prophetically, and we're going to have some conversations around these things. Before I got on this morning, I was listening to Brother talk about behind the veil, and I want him to expound on that a little bit more today. I think it's such a blessing because as we're talking about destroying the gates of the gods, I said in the secondary clip that this is where the adversaries set up shop. This is where they begin to build these fortresses and the ramparts in the heart and in the mind. It's really a soul realm that they're building these things in so that when you begin to think, when you begin to act, and when you begin to do, you are bound to the covenant that you've made. We just came out of covenant cultures and looking at cosmology and all of those things. And we are gaining an understanding of the importance of understanding what we are in covenant with and that there is an effect that is had on us because of our connection and what we are aligning ourselves with. There is a direct effect on our lives. Brother, I'm so thankful to have you in the room this morning. Good galactic, great, grand morning to you, sir.
Shalom and glorious grand rising, galactic glorious grand rising to you and to all those who are listening in and to those that will be coming in. It is
Yes,
as Celeste Bryce a plump pleasing pleasure this morning.
absolutely,
And so
absolutely. And still we're still in Genesis chapter 11, but I want you to just kind of have your way for a moment. I didn't mean to interrupt you. I thought you was coming to an
oh
end. Go ahead.
no.
I thought you was going to a close. Come on with it.
Oh, well, all I can contribute to that is, sis, you ready to go, you're excited, and I'm with you when you're right, you know, and it's just wonderful to be here on this grand rising day morning, and so I'm just excited about the things of Yah and just is just wonderful. It really is. It really is. And so
It
I
is.
I missed some of the opening and everything, but you saying behind the veil and the things that we kind of discussed on the last time we was with everyone, and
Yes.
just it's really something. you know, you're talking about the gates and the eye gates, ear gates, the
Oh,
mouth
yeah.
gate, and all those areas. And so I just when I heard that, it just echoed in my spirit when Yeshua said to Kepha, "And the gates of hell shall not prevail
Hey,
against you."
come on.
And so, and then associating the gates, because when you look at the temple, they had the
Yes.
gates,
That's right.
and they were very important because the gates had to be protected.
That's right.
They had to be protected, and the priest had a responsibility. I'm going to say something about the veil because it's interesting. I mean, see now,
Come on now.
you
Come on.
they had a responsibility to guard the house of Yah, the temple, at all times.
Yes.
They had a responsibility to guard, and so it's interesting when I'm looking at just thinking about a particular scripture, and so like Numbers chapter 18,
Yes.
verse 1, verse 5, it says,
Yes.
then Yeshua said to Aaron, you and your sons and your ancestral tribe with you are to bear responsibility
Come
for the
on.
sins against the sanctuary.
Come on.
You and your sons and your sons' sons, your sons alone are to bear the responsibility against the sins against the priesthood. In verse 5, you are responsible for the care of the sanctuary and the altar, so
Yes.
that the wrath will not fall upon the children of Israel. So when we look at the physical structure that Yah had they had built, and so they had a responsibility for the temple. And
Yes.
so we in the on the spirit side of that, as we look at what was the shadow, now we are in the light. We are no we can be seen now. And it's interesting because we have the responsibility, no longer under the Levitical priesthood, and but under the royal priesthood. So we have this responsibility for the spiritual temple, these
Yes.
gates. And so and so when we look at the different gates and things like that, so it's just interesting because they had a responsibility. You know, they couldn't come in. Certain things could not come in. People that, if you at the congregation, you could not come in. They had a responsibility for the care of the sanctuary. And it's interesting that goes into the area of the veil, because it was, when you look at it, what are we doing? Where,
Yes.
we're looking at the veil, and it's interesting because when you now think about that veil, and I'm looking at John and Yachanan, when
Yes.
the woman that was at the Samaritan
Yes.
woman in that story, and that whole piece right there says that that he has this conversation with the woman, and then later on in that conversation, he said, they that worship me must worship me in spirit and truth. And it
Yes.
goes into that conversation even a little bit more when he says, listen, the glory, you're not going to no longer worship in the mountains or in Jerusalem. So it is interesting that he says that the spirit of Yah is is going out to seek to find those that will worship him in spirit and
Yes.
truth. So it's going out from where? From behind the veil. The glory is no longer behind the veil. So Yah is seeking those that will worship him in spirit and truth. So when I look at spirit and truth, spirit plus truth equals
Yes.
glory. So the glory is no longer behind the veil. And so it's just interesting that as we have responsibility for our temple, these gates, we have responsibility so the worship, it's interesting. It's the worship of things is different because there are people today in the religious complex industrial
Yes.
system. They worship according to the Levitical priesthood. That's the Levitical priesthood has been done away.
Yes.
And so we see that when the veil was rent, on the time when Yeshua, his spirit was given up and died. So the veil was rent. So there's no more glory behind the
Yes.
veil. No more glory behind the veil. And so we see today that there are many people, say, I'm going behind the veil. I want to, I'm, just in that place, in that secret place. Well, we don't have to go
Yes.
behind the veil. See, that physical veil is rent. It's no longer
Yes.
there. That physical veil is no
No
longer
longer.
there. So where is the veil? So we're talking about a spiritual house. We have talked about a spiritual house. So now it's reversed. Now understand this. It's so important for us to understand that when the priest went in, And when the high priest went behind the veil, there's certain things that had to take
Yeah.
place. There's certain things. So he had to be clean. Everything about him had to be right. The way you enter into the temple, into the courtyard, into the holy place, and then to the most holy place. There were things that had to take place. You couldn't enter in the
That's right.
wrong way. You couldn't enter the gates the
That's
wrong
right.
way. Many times we enter the gates. Well, when they look at the understanding of the physical, it's just interesting that they take the Levitical priesthood, and so they're talking about behind the veil, and yet they say, well, wait a
Mm.
minute, that these things that was done then we don't have to do no more. But they want to go behind the veil. They want to do everything
Everything.
that they done, but yet at the same time, how
It is.
confusing it is. We don't have to
Yeah.
do all of that.
Yeah. It's the ritual.
you know, Absolutely. So the glory is not there. The glory is not there. So it's just interesting because now he says, I'm seeking for those that will worship me in spirit and truth.
Yeah.
Now, the glory is not behind the veil. Where is the glory? Where is the glory? If he said he's seeking, and so it's interesting because I look at on the
Yeah.
Second Chronicles that he said, "If my people who are
Yes.
called, which are
Yeah.
called by my name, would humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways,"
Then.
he said, then I
Yeah. I will
himself
hear
will hear from
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 heaven.
heaven. In
That's right.
other words, and as he said, he's seeking. Then he can see where heaven is, and he can he then now he can come and reside
Yeah.
behind the veil of our
Yes.
hearts. Spirit can come in, but yet we're not so responsible with the
Oh my.
gates because the gates of hell has prevailed
Against
against
the
us.
city. Yeah. Yeah.
They have prevailed against us, and Yah said, I do not dwell in an
That's right.
unclean temple. So it's interesting the worship. He said, I want to come and be in your heart. I want to come down and sit on the
Yeah.
mercy seat. I want to sit there. But it's hard for me to sit there when you're not responsible for the
Mm.
gates.
Mm.
You're not taking responsibility. So the worship, when we come down to worship and in that place, that means that we have to be in a position now in order for that area for the glory to be within us. That Yah, the spirit of Yah is in us. And when it's in us, with working on the inside, works on the outside.
Mm. Facts.
Okay.
Facts.
Oh
My God.
my. So all right, sis.
My
All
God.
right, sis.
As you were speaking that, it made me go to Acts chapter 7, where the discussion is that the Most High does not dwell in temples made with the hands of men. And so when we're thinking about, because we're still in Genesis chapter 11, you say, well, why are we still there? Because we're stuck there, because there's something there that we need to identify with, because we saw it before and we will see it again. It has to do with how man responds to the instructions of Yah and the outcome of that response to his instruction, whether it is for or against. We are going to see a pattern of that in the scripture. But Acts chapter 7, verse 48, I'm going to pull it up real quick. It says here, however, and I guess I'll go above it, because it was Solomon who built the house for him. He allowed that. There was an allowance there of that because it was David's desire for a house, right? And the father said, I understand the desire. This is a divine desire. It's out of an intimate place that you desire to do this unto me. But your hands are bloody. So because your hands are bloody, I will not allow your desire to be crafted by those hands, but I will allow your son to build what your desire is. And when we look at this, you can see so many dynamics. When we read the scripture, we got to read them through divine eyes. We got to read them through a different lens. We're reading them through this church industrial complex lens, and we're missing so many details. Missing so many details. When you look at the relationship and how the father responded to Solomon as a result of his father, he allows him to build something that he says, listen, I don't really even dwell in houses made by human hands, because heaven is my throne and the earth is my footstool. And often when we're dealing with heaven and earth, there are facets of this that we don't really pay attention to. And brother kind of brought some of those things to bear last week, and he's bringing those things again to bear when he talks about Second Chronicles, because normally when we think of heavens, we begin to look up, right? And up is a place, but it's this whole concept of only thinking one dimensionally, and the heavens have to do with your way of thinking, your way of life. What do you think that the adversary is after? His ultimate goal is to ascend in that seat, to ascend to that seat. That was the whole concept. It wasn't just a physical, we're going to go into the heavens, bombard the heavens, and overthrow, the seat there. Look at all the people that were building this thing and how they were all one and of one language and all of this. And the imagination that they had constructed was going to manifest because of their unity. This rebellion got in the heads of these people. It got in their heads, it got in their hearts, and it got in their hands. And when we start talking about the head, the heart, and the hands, that's when we start talking about a mark. When we start talking about new world orders, and we see these new world orders that were birthed even from a scriptural standpoint, even from a biblical standpoint, it was about the heart, the head, and the hands. And this is the foundational component of markings. Whether you're going to be sealed, or whether you're going to have this marking that causes you to reap the repercussions of your decision, or whether you make a decision that causes you to reap the blessing or the benefit of your decision, deals with your heart, your head, and your hands. It's what the adversary is after. It's what he's after, brother.
Yes. Oh my goodness. That when sis. Oh my goodness. Mm-mm-mm.
Mm-hmm.
As you were saying, as we were saying, you're seeing. We see with a divine eye, and so the whole thing is how we're supposed to be today,
Yes.
and our clothing, our our clothing that we wear. There's a spiritual clothing that we have.
Yes.
There's a thing that how we see our. I know we see flesh, but the flesh is covered up with glory. Glory is our divine clothing,
Yes.
which brings us to immortality.
Yes.
Again, so he brings us into a place. He said, not made by man's hand, and I love it, as you were saying. But here we are. Our clothing, our spiritual skin,
Yes.
spiritual skin is glory.
Yes.
I mean, that he brings us to that place, and
Yes.
as we are in that place of how we live and see and hear, everything is it is immortally, divinely, because when we talk about immortal, they're spiritual beings.
Yes.
That's mortal, but they're not divine.
That's
They're
right.
agents, but they're not righteously divine.
That's
you
right.
know and so it's just something that how that we are in this place now,
Yes.
that he's bringing us, uh, being converted into,
Yeah.
comes from bringing us out of complete mortality into
Yeah.
immortality.
Yeah.
We're shedding that skin. I remember my first experience of shedding skin. It
Yeah.
was in the palm of my hand. when I
Mm.
was just a kid. And you're like, oh, and I'm
My
thinking that
spirit's
it's
healing.
gonna hurt. It's peeling, and I'm like, my goodness, that dead skin is coming off, and so, so then I was in elementary school, then we had that white glue,
Oh yeah, yeah. The white
and
glue.
we put it on our hand, and
Peel it
and
off.
we replicate it once it started drying up, of peeling the dead skin off of
Yes,
us. We
yes,
would emulate that because
yeah,
we experienced the peeling off of dead skin, and under that was new skin.
yes.
You don't see that often now.
No, no.
And that's interesting because when we were younger, we experienced that. The
Yeah,
body, I'm sorry.
the
It
body
just,
underwent so many different transitions that it
absolutely.
now is not undergoing because of stagnancy and the off. The frequency or the synergy is off. It's just off.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
And so when the body doesn't go through natural changes like it to renew itself,
yeah,
and it just it's not renewing itself like it was. And so it's just interesting because spiritually, people are not being re- people are not being renewed. We don't see new skin. We don't
they're
see
not.
everything is old wine skin.
Yeah,
You know, and so uh, just bringing us to a place, the
yeah.
sons and those who he's preparing preparing now immortality. I
Hmm.
mean, we peel it off. We peel it off. Our eye, we see different. We hear different. And it's just really something. And so,
Yeah.
as you were talking, and that not made by man's hand,
Hmm.
and so it's just interesting because a lot of people would like, ooh, when I get my mansion is not made by man's hand.
Oh my God. Mm. Mm. Such a sad
My mansion,
situation.
and I'm like, oh my
They
goodness.
don't understand that
Uh,
they're the mansion, that's
exactly.
the reference that the master was making.
Uh,
Wow.
right. So just it's just something because you know, but Yah, as Yah's revealing, people going to begin to see. People
He
going to
is.
begin to understand. They may not put the dots together, but they're going to be. It's going to be
It's going to be
revealed to
revealed.
them.
Yeah.
Absolutely, it will be. So
Yeah. It's so funny. I got a story for you guys, but I want to say this because when I speak about these enemies, I want you to know of this responsibility that their brother was talking about. It's a responsibility to guard these gates, and that there's nothing that can really bombard your gates. You can't just be overtaken. This only comes as a result of the gate's neglect, the neglect of the gate. So some religious person might say, well, what about Job or Job, right? Job said, the thing that I most greatly feared, he was operating in the spirit of fear. This is the reason why he was offering sacrifices, because he was offering sacrifices in lieu of the possibility that his children had sinned. This was an opening of his gates. And when his gates were open, then he was subject to the testing. He was subject to that proving because he had to be purified again to get back on track. You talked about the veil. A veil is something that keeps something hidden. And it's amazing because Yah is now written on the table of our hearts. We don't have to go behind the veil to get to him, but it's something that's written on the table of our hearts. But how is it activated? It's activated because we come into relationships with sons, whether they are apostles, prophets, pastors, teachers, evangelists. We come into relationships with the body, and the body begins to cause activation of the parts. You understand what I'm saying? So Yah is written on the table of the hearts of men. The very essence of who he is even in our DNA. We're coded this way. And Noah's covenant was as a result of his purity, the purity that you were talking about. It's not about Levitical priesthood anymore, but it's now after the order of Melchizedek. And what is this order? It's an order that is not earthly, because it doesn't require a lineage. It doesn't require a nation. It doesn't require any of that. And look at how he chose Israel. He chose them out of, everybody was all together after the fall, but he pulled out something that was least likely, not likely to be chosen, not the strongest of the bunch, not the most numerable of the nations. He chose something that others would have deemed insignificant, and he made it great. So this is why we have to deal with these gates, because a lot of people that are listening to this broadcast today share equal pain in an area. They want to be relevant, you know, they want to know what their purpose is, right? And the relevancy is not your biggest issue, because why people are searching for relevance and running after trying to be relevant is because they've lost their identity. The only reason for running after relevance or trying to be relevant in the eyes of men is because you've lost your identity. Your born identity has been lost. This is a funny story. I was in the store yesterday, and as I was in the store yesterday with my husband, we were walking through the store, and a young man that was servicing us, as he was talking to us, he just kind of shifted gears for a minute. He said, "Excuse me, are you guys believers?" And so when he asked that, we said yes. And he said, "I knew it." He said, "Because it's all on you. It's like it's on your countenance. You are glowing." He started describing what he was seeing. So he was throwing little things in there, here and there. We were talking about this phone and blah, 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 just talking shop. And then he starts asking questions. We get to another position and he starts asking questions because now he wants to inquire. And so I started sharing with him some things. And as I was sharing these things with him, he began to say, "Ooh, that's heavy." It was like became a weight on him. And so we talked about this before, and it's such a funny thing. My husband and I are laughing about it now, because it really was funny. Because I asked for his information because I wanted to make sure that when I came back to the store, I was letting him know that we were coming back there, that he was there, so that he would get the commission. So he did write his number down on a card, and he gave it to us. And as we were sharing what we were sharing, and he began to talk about how heavy the thing was that we were talking about, and how, he was like, "Wow, that's deep." And it was just like it was opening up his mind. It was opening, his spirit was being opened. But we've talked about, and we've already, I don't think we've gotten to it yet, but we will get to it, where you'll see the children of Israel, where they want someone else to be the liaison between them and God, between them and their God, because they feel like, "Oh, this is going to explode my head. Whoa, this is a lot." You know what I'm saying? And it was such a funny thing. And the thing that we were laughing about, and still laughing about even today, is the fact that before we left, he kind of looked at me. He said, "Let me get that back from you." The card with his number on. He said, "I want to take some time just to go over some of the things that you guys said, and just to kind of, do the research." And I said, "I'm encouraging you to do that." But the funny thing is that I asked for the number to make sure he got the commission, which I'm still going to make sure he gets it. But it was funny because in the mind, my husband, he's like, "Well, are we not going to get the phone? Because that was the reason for the phone number." I don't know why he's taking the phone number back, but it was just the weight of the conversation. And I shared some things with him. I said, "We're not even in the church age, but people are still in that space." He said, "What do you mean by that?" And so I began to talk to him about Constantine. I began to talk to him about the kingdom and how it had come, and how the master was the prototype. That are sons after his order, that are after the egg, that are the sons that are after the firstborn of many sons, are now operating in kingdom, not in church. And so it was just really blowing his mind. But these are those things where we have to destroy the gates, but we got to destroy our own personal gates, because the only thing we can do is persuade men to come in. We can't make them come in. They have to destroy their own gates. But these gods that I was discussing, these things that become idol or idolatry, these things become idolatrous. Even religion, even the concepts and the traditions of men, even the doctrines of death, these things become idols, and they allow the establishment of gates, or what we call ramparts, that are set up to keep the divine purpose and will of Yah concerning you out. You got to be able to identify these things and begin to destroy the gates. I started out with something, and I probably would play it again because I think that it's something that I play throughout this conversation because I want these things to be in your psyche. I want them to be in the forefront of your mind today on this Sabbath. I want these things to be in the forefront of your mind. And brother missed them anyway. So I want to play them for him again because I know he'll have a lot to say about them. But this secondary thing that I stated was about the spiritual ventriloquism. And you notice that ventriloquists don't allow other people to handle the strings or the manipulation or the animation of their doll. Oh my God, I had planned to go this way. Nobody handles the animation of the doll but the person that owns it. So where do we get these concepts that there's some outside force that's manipulating strings? No, it's something that we're missing in that moment in the way of truth. And now I'll talk to you about how this truth, whether it is ignored or rejected, or whether it's just a level of ignorance that doesn't allow us either to hear it or to understand how to utilize it or what to do with it, right? But no ventriloquist allows somebody else to manipulate the animation of their doll. I'm talking about idols, right? They do it themselves. They hold the strings or the back of that doll, and they also, with their lips pursed, can communicate from the doll to others. Oh my God. Brother, I'm going to give you the floor for a moment because this throwing me way back for a hot second. I'm thrown back for a minute.
I'm like, go
I'm
ahead,
thrown
finish,
back.
because because there's, I'm looking at this tranquilliquism and
See?
everything, and it's really something because when you because I used to have a dial.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to do that. I really, it was just
Yes.
intriguing to have this dial in the back of your hand and the movement and
Ooh-wee.
talking without moving
All at
your
the same
lips
time.
and everything, all at the same time. You know, and because
It's
there
so
is,
spiritual.
when you look at it, there it is a telepathic
So
type
spiritual.
of thing that
Yeah.
goes on because you hear me talk, but the dial mouth
Ooh.
is moving and it sounds like it's coming from the dial,
Oh
but
my
it's not.
God.
It's coming from the hand, coming from the
Listen,
handler.
I'm telling you, if y'all pick up what the father's putting down this morning, you gonna destroy these gates today. You hear me?
you know, and so it's just interesting because now there is the telepathic information that's being told. You don't see the
Oh
lips
my.
moving, but you see the dial. You see the
Mm-hmm.
expression of the one that's handling the dial.
Mm-hmm.
Because the dial is the very the dial is the expression
That's
of the
handling
person
it. Hey, wait
that's
a
handling
minute.
it.
Oh my God. It's an extension of.
And so absolutely. And then sometimes they engage in
Oh my.
conversation. They engage in conversation. So we as you were saying,
Mm-hmm.
we see the things in the diabolical religious complex system. Something is you're being used.
Mm-hmm.
And yet at the same time, there are things are being said telepathically, and you're
Mm-hmm.
repeating you the expression. Why? Because you have not taken responsibility. Because when you look at what Yah is doing, Yah does the
He
same thing with
does.
us. He uses
Yes.
us. Yah, I'm gonna speak what
Yep.
you speak. I'm gonna do what you want me to
Mm-hmm.
do. And so we see him as the person, because the person that's handling the dial, we so amazed. We don't notice. We know that there's a person there, but we so amazed at how is this dial that
Oh
comes
my
to
God.
life.
Listen, but the most amazing part of that is choosing the language for the cry that's specific.
Yes.
You know, there's a
Hmm.
choice of language. And this is what we've been looking at in Genesis chapter 11, this choice of language. It's a choosing of a language so that I can communicate to see a result. I can understand that there's an end of the ideation. You know, when we look at the beginning of this recreation in Genesis, we see the end of after the ideation, we have a conversation. And that is the bane to the manifestation that's going to follow it. And a lot of people are not understanding that the reason why they are seeing the manifestation that they're seeing is not because of some outside thing that is manipulating or controlling them. It's because of what is internally endeared to whatever it is. There's some kind of connection. There's some kind of endearing. I'm looking at a lot of believers in this hour who are connected to the fraternities and sororities. A lot of them saying they're believers, but they are connected to something that makes a proclamation to something else. They haven't even researched this stuff. They don't even have a clue. But then all of these things as a result begin to happen. And they're thinking, oh, I'm being tested, I'm being tried. Sure. But do you understand the test? Do you understand the trial by fire? Are you going to allow yourself to be purified? Or are you going to come out and go right back to the thing that you were doing? Not understanding that you're creating a situation through idolatry that is angering the God that you say you serve. It's separating you. He's not doing it, you're doing it. It's that mindset where people are thinking that, the father's sitting somewhere with some kind of mullet trying to bop people on the head. You know what I'm saying? No, he set it up where he said, as long as the earth remains, he said, I'm not going to ever get so angry that y'all cause me to react. He said, no, my response is that how I created the earth is going to continue to regenerate and to generate and to regenerate. And in those seasons, the outcomes are going to manifest. What you sow, you're going to reap. What you plant, you're going to grow. You know what I'm saying? And so this thing is so serious to me in this hour. Just understand it. And I'm not saying that you won't have tests if you're doing the right thing, because any test, any trial can come while you're doing the right thing. Noah was doing the right thing. And the trial was that he was going to have to make a decision whether he was going to obey to build something that was going to make him look stupid. I was sharing something with somebody yesterday, and I said to them, this place of perseverance is really important, because a lot of people think that because I'm not being seen or because I'm not known, I'm saying individually, you're not, I'm not saying I'm not known, because we're not known in the time that we're processing through the obedience that the Father's calling us to, that's just his desire. That's just the way it's going to be. No. Can you persevere through the hour that you're not known, so that you are perfecting who you are, and you're perfecting your being, so that when you step into a room, what you be is what others see, and what is being manifested, not because you've always been visible, but now that you're visible, they can see the invisible on you. They can see the invisible in you. They can see and hear invisible coming out of you. You understand what I'm saying? But that's because of a cultivation. And that's because of a trial. That's because of the testing. The master said it, and so did Peter. It was good that I was afflicted, because it taught me something. The master learned obedience through his affliction. And there was a season where he was like, don't tell nobody. Don't. It wasn't his time. But people that get discouraged because it's not their time are people that simply want the glory for themselves. But if you understand that while you're not visible, the Father is perfecting something in you, so that when people see you, they see him. then you'll not care about the numbers. You'll show up 2 or 10,000. You understand what I'm saying? And you'll do what he called you to do, because you'll know that not only are those that are coming after, that this will be up and people will see it long after this time. Somebody will have access to it. Brother?
Oh, that laugh was kind of personal.
Okay,
I'll tell
tell
you
me
later.
about it. Tell me about it. I know you will. You know you
But anyway,
will.
y'all excuse me. As you were
Yes.
talking, uh, and this came on this scripture came in my spirit, but and I'm a report I'm a read portion of what was here, and but this one particular verse stood out. It has impacted me. This particular portion verse has impacted me tremendously, and it's just something. So I want to read just portion of this out of Second Corinthians, chapter 10, and I'll read from verse 3 to verse 7, if you don't mind, sis. Uh, it said, verse 3 says, though we live in the flesh, we do not wage war according to the flesh. Read for that. Verse 4, and we quoted so many times. For the weapons of our warfare are not carnal, but they're mighty in Yahweh for pulling down strongholds. And I'm thinking about that stronghold that surrounds the fortresses, the temple, the head, that protects and what have you. However, verse 5, I'm getting to where it just has really just got me. Verse 5, demolishing arguments and destroying every high thing that exalted itself against the one who is Yah, bringing under control every thought to the obedience as the Messiah, as the Messiah. This is what got me. This is where I'm at, sis. Verse 6, and being in readiness to punish all
Come on.
disobedience once our obedience is
Come on.
complete.
Come on.
That's
That's
got
serious.
me. I'm stuck right
Yes.
there. And then, as you were saying in verse 7, do you look at the things according to the uh, outward appearance? If anyone is confident in himself that he is Messiah, he should again consider this to himself, just as he is Messiah, even so are we the Messiah. You
Church
know,
folks can't handle this
so
kind of talk, brother.
being in readiness to punish. And so when we talk about punish, when all disobedience, when our obedience is complete. And so as you were talking, that just came up in me. I'm like, oh my goodness. You know, to destroy, to bring down when our obedience is complete. And so it's hard for the religious complex system to bring down disobedience because their obedience, the obedience is not complete.
Incomplete.
Incomplete. It's incomplete. Thank you, sis. And so it's just so I'm looking at all of this. I'm looking at disobedience, but we have the power to punish disobedience, all disobedience, all on every level. That's and as you were talking, it's
It's so
blowing my
deep.
mind. So and I even thought about punishment. For every diabolical plan that is being in counsel of the gates of Shiloh, hell. It said not prevent. So every argument that exalt, I got. Listen, when my obedience is complete, I can put it on punishment.
Wow. And you know what I'm thinking about when you say that, because what people have to understand,
Go ahead,
and we're
sis.
gonna have to mute back and forth because this thing doing is stupid again. But um, you have to understand when you look at the life of the Mashiach, when you look at the life of the sons of Yah, they brought punishment in the arenas that they went into, even without words to people. People were offended by how they functioned. People were offended by how they walked. I've experienced that. I've experienced it several times. I've experienced it recently where people are completely offended by the fact that I'm not ghetto. I'm not going back and forth with folks. I'm not going to cuss you out, but I'm going to say what it is. I'm going to state facts. I'm going to say what it is. And then you just have to deal with that, you know? But when we follow the instruction of Yah, look at this. The master was led of the Holy Spirit into a wilderness. Most people that call themselves believers don't want to go nowhere. This is why the Father don't give us the process though. Because I can guarantee you that if he told us the process by which we were going to have to endure or function or walk through, people would be like, no, I opt out of that. He said, no, I'm not going to give you the process. I'm going to tell you the end from the beginning. This is the end. And if you focus on the end and understand what my plan is for you, then you will walk through this process and you'll come out like the master came out in the power of the Spirit. You won't be overtaken. You'll destroy the gates of God's, whatever things were resident, whatever things were culturally norm for you, whatever things were familial to you, you'll begin to destroy those things. Because understand, Nimrod, this rebellious seed came out of something divine. And so I made this statement, and I'm going to play those clips in just a second. That uh, that error, error, error is not it doesn't just stand alone. It's a result of truth. You can't have error unless truth has been revealed. That's where error comes from. Error is the twisting of truth. You understand what I'm saying? There are facets of dealing with truth. One of the facets is, and I call the error is more of an arrogance. Error is arrogance. It says in the heart, there is no divine punishment. There is no repercussion. There is no higher idea than mine. You understand what I'm saying? There is no God, is what it says physically. But when you understand what God is, when you understand what that means, then you'll understand it is dealing with something that is higher, a higher resonance than what you're thinking about. And the Father said it like this. He said, my ways are not your ways. But that doesn't mean you stay there. The point is that you understand the intimacy is so necessary so that you can identify with his way, identify with his thoughts, and then it just kind of is autonomous because that's just where you are. You're always seeking the thoughts of Yah. You're always operating in the thoughts. The master said it like this: I only do and say what my Father does and says. I only do what I see him doing, and I only say what he says. So he proved as a prototype that this is the way of sons. This is how this works, right? I'm going to play the clips again, brother, because I want you to hear these, and I want, again, for these things to be on the minds of the people. So I'm going to go back to the top, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to do it with, let me see if I go here. Let me see if I go here, if I can play it from here. Yeah, okay. Here we go. Listen to it again, guys. Error is not the absence of truth. It's in the presence of truth. There must be a destruction of the gates of the gods in the lives of men in order for them to not become their own puppet masters. We've always thought of darkness as having the ability to hold strings, but the truth is spiritual ventriloquism is when we are the dummies holding the strings, animating our own way and don't even realize it. And it's all a game. The enemy sets up these gates, these fortresses in the hearts and minds of men and the souls of men. This is why we have to allow the Father to restore our souls. This is why the gates have to be destroyed, because those things are set up as ramparts against the will and the plan of Yah concerning the life of men. Brother?
Yeah, I was. It went out a little bit, so I couldn't hear everything.
Okay.
But yeah. Oh my. Hmm.
Yeah, we having a little interview. I was harping on was the fact that we are thinking that there's some external holding of strings when we're the dummies holding our own strings and animating ourselves. We're allowing the animation. Adam allowed an animation that changed his whole relationship. He was in charge, and he allowed an animation that changed everything. So I said, error is not. It's not in the absence of truth. It's connected to it. You know. That's why it's error, because
You're
it's a choice. It was a choice to decide to go down this particular path. But even though something was revealed, we ignored that revelation and made a choice to go a different way. I'm muting so you can share.
oh, the freakers is high today.
Oh my God.
Well, it's just interesting because when we look at the law, the commandments, and it said, that it reveals your sins. It reveals where you are wrong. Here's a truth, but it reveals your error. You know, and so it's just interesting because it said, "Behold, your sin will find you out." How? Through the law. you know, and it's just something that when you think about this, that we look at the laws of man and what have you, and it's interesting that I used to use an illustration, someone driving and not knowing, you got different signs, stop, go, yield, different things like that. But you've been in a position where you don't even know these things. And there's some people just, they drive, but they run stoplights, they run stop, let's say stop signs, they go through the yield, and something they don't. And sometimes they don't get caught, but yet they do. And when you begin to hear the stop sign say, "Hey, here's the truth. You stop." But if you don't stop, then you get caught. Then a lot of times we have a lot of excuses why I didn't stop. However, the truth revealed that you broke the law. You were wrong. You were wrong in doing this. It's just interesting in that aspect that it reveals, that truth reveals you're wrong. And a lot of times people don't want to know the truth because it reveals you ain't right.
Oh my God.
you ain't you ain't right. So people rather hear a lie than the truth. Isn't that something? So it just I had another thought, but that one that stood out as you were sharing, that stood out right there, and just it's just really something. Um, People don't want to know the truth, but it said we're free from the truth, free. The truth makes us free. We become free. And just as you said, we go through this, and he set up everything. He sets us up. He does. And so, oh, I know my thought. Okay, so going back to the dummy, because when I looked at Adam in the garden, he was before Eve. He was just a dummy. He was, but the dummy was challenged. Oh my goodness, y'all! I'm putting it in those terms, but y'all allowed the dummy to be challenged because y'all gave a command. He said, "Do not eat from the knowledge of the tree of righteousness and evil." But then the pushback comes. Rebellion comes in and said, wait a minute. Nothing's not going to happen.
There go those gates.
The gates. And said, okay, I look like everything is all right. Nothing did happen to you,
There
wife.
go that pattern.
So I'm going to eat because the gate, it looked, the present looked like me. It had
That's
glory.
right.
It had glory, but so it looked like, but it wasn't. So I ate. So I lost my. I was no longer controlled by you. Y'all says you got now. You just like the gods. You're gonna make decisions on your own. You know, I'm not controlling you. You're gonna be controlled by something else now. You're gonna be a dummy for something else.
Mm-mm.
Oh, so I decided, and I got tickled, sister. I decided, Lord, and people thought I was crazy. I said I gave up my choice to choose. I gave up my choice because I don't want to. I don't want to choose to make choices no more. I'm going to be this dummy that Yahweh is using. Whatever He says, okay. Whatever He said, do okay. What the thoughts, okay. I'm gonna think like you. Whatever that takes, that's what I'm gonna do. Because the choice to choose came out of being in error, disobedience, to become like the gods. So now I am as who He is above the gods, greater than the gods, because now I'm His dummy, and I'm not uh, I'm putting myself on mute, sis.
Say if I'm gonna be a dummy, I'm gonna manipulate my back according to what he's saying. I'm not gonna do it differently. I'm gonna do it according to what he said. It's amazing. I didn't even read the intro today. It was just such a. I think I will read it before I leave, but I just, this thing was just so serious to me. I just felt like we needed to spend some more time in Genesis 11 because there were some more facets, and there's still way more facets. Because when you think about all of the gods that were in this place, Babylon, we know Babel is confusion by mixing. That was the Father's doing. But Babylon is the confusion that man began to engender in that space because of the gods. And so this is why they called Babylon the gate of the gods, right? Because every culture that came through there, which by the way came out of Noah and his sons, uh, understand they brought their gods with them. And this was what the waging of war was always about, because one thought that their God was better or over another. And so they didn't want to lose their worship of the gods that they were particularly serving. But none of these, of course, were Yah. So this is why they were killing each other, because even in that confusion, was being engendered in that space. So I'm going to read the intro, and then I'm going to turn y'all loose today because I really want you to delve into this a little bit more, and maybe I'll bring it up a little bit more while we're going into 12 and 13 next week. But I've been up since yesterday anyway. I've been up since yesterday, so I've done a full 24 hours at this point, and I need to go somewhere and sit down. But I still have something when I get off this line. Yeah, it's serious. So here's the opening. From the dawn of humanity, there's been an unseen war for dominion, not just over the earth, but over the minds and souls of men. The greatest deception of all is not that darkness has control, but that we, in our own blindness, willingly reinforce its gates. Hope you got that. The gates of the gods are no longer confined to ancient geography. They are the internal fortresses of belief, identity, and willpower that determine our spiritual course. The first Adam stood at the threshold of responsibility, yet instead of wielding the authority given to him, he pointed the finger and shifted the blame. In doing so, he failed to recognize that he was not just a victim of deception. He held the key. He had the strings. This is the same condition that plagues men today. We hold within us the power to dismantle, and brother just read the scripture, or reinforce these gates, and yet too often we become our own captors, operating as both puppet and master in spiritual ventriloquism. There is one fundamental reality that all men share: the quest to understand who we are, to grasp our potential, and to fulfill our purpose. That doesn't matter where you are and what you call yourself, whether you're New Age, whether you're calling yourself Christian, whether you call yourself a believer. All of these things are synonymous with what we desire, or the quest that all men have to understand. The desire to make something happen is embedded in our very nature. And at the beginning, the Father said, what? Let them have. So we go after this idea of having, but are we looking in the right direction for what we should have? Because the kingdom is sought first and then things are added. But along this path, there are convincing conversations lurking around every corner, subtle distortions, ideological diversions, and enticing alternatives, all designed to move us away from the divine trajectory that leads to promise and fulfillment. We saw it in Israel, right? We saw it in some of the kings that were supposed to be the kings of Israel. To overcome this, we must first confront the enemy within. I keep talking about this because this is so important. I'm not going to let this year go by without continually hitting this point that your greatest enemy is what is inside, the inner me, the inner enemy is the greatest enemy that you'll ever have. This dismantling of strongholds is not merely about tearing down external structures, because in Israel there was this conversation about tearing down the high places. Brother brought this to bear when he said that the master met the woman at the well, and she was still under the impression that the high places were the place of worship. But it wasn't about that ritual or that tradition. Now it was about the heart of man, and Father looking for that seat to sit on, just like the adversary is looking for that seat to operate from. The dismantling of strongholds is not merely about tearing down external structures, but breaking the invisible barriers of the soul. These are the ramparts of pride, ignorance, misplaced identity, and the chains of past iniquity. Only through submission to the Holy Spirit, aligning ourselves by spirit to the Father, can we navigate past the distractions and deceptions and move into true spiritual expression. Thinking about this young man who took this card back yesterday with his number on it. I'm like, we not the witnesses. We not Jehovah's Witnesses. We're not going to call you and share no more of this. You the one that, we're thinking he the one brought it up. We didn't ask to talk to him. We didn't ask none of this. He's the one that saw what he saw. He's the one that was, the Father revealed what he revealed. And so it made him nervous. But we're not meant to be lifeless figures on a stage, moved by unseen forces of manipulation. That's just not how this works. We're called to be the embodiment of divine authority, the articulation of his will in the earth, the divine expression of who he is. To do this, we must destroy the gates first within, then around us, so that we are no longer dummies holding on our own strings, but vessels of a higher purpose. We're vessels of Yah, according to this kingdom that he's called us into. Yeah, that's where we are, folks. Listen, brother, do you have something else you want to share on this? Because I could talk about this all day. I'm really kind of stuck here. And I don't know. We're going to have to say some more about it next week. But hey, brother, I see my brother, Apostle Clarence, on. Blessings to you, brother. I'm going to mute to see what you have to say, brother.
Well, I don't have a whole lot, but just at this point, because it is a lot to be said. It really is, and not knowing all the things that was coming forth today. But all I can say is no longer bound in the cages. Free people have the ability to be free in the cage on different sides, different levels. The larger your cage is, the more free you are in the cage. But no longer it's going because in the cage, it deals with everything that the appearance and how things are, things like that, titles and recognition and things like that. But no longer free in the cage, but free from the cage. That gives the ability beyond infinity and beyond to operate on a level of immortality, no longer bound to the institution of religion and beastly systems, because the cages are getting ready to implode.
Yes, Lord.
They are. And so it's just wonderful to be free from the cage, because when we are free from the cage, you get all kind of labels on you. You're crazy. But Yah is using the unlikely, the unlikely in this hour. Yah is using the sons. They're coming forth, the unlikely. Those who that from the mama's womb, as a child, as a toddler, as a the next stage to teenager, to an adult. You've been, and so now the stage of Yah is coming forth, because all the prophets of Baal, their stage is coming down. And Yah using the prophets, his prophets, that will just begin to speak, and things will begin to happen. We'll begin to see the manifestations of Yah. Because who we are, Yeshua has done the work. It's all up to us now. It's us. It's the sons, and I will say this for some others: the sons and the daughters of Yah that's coming forth. That is mysterious. That is powerful, to be able to speak to the elements, and it obeys your voice, free from the cage. And Yah is we building the stage of Yah. And as Paul, I believe I may not be quoted right, he said there are many fools. But if you're gonna call me a fool, I'm a fool for Yah. Many dummies, but if I'm gonna be a dummy, I'm gonna be a dummy for Yah.
You better believe it.
Use me. That's all I got to say, sis.
Listen, you better believe it. Paul said it like this: I am a prisoner. If I'm going to be in chains, it's going to be chained to truth. It's going to be chained to deliverance. It's going to be chained to the kingdom. Yeah, we're going to finish the work in this hour. And just as I was sharing with that young man yesterday, I said, sir, I said, I don't have to lay hands on you. I don't have to do any of that. I mean, he was acknowledging all of who I was. I didn't have to tell him who I was. I didn't have to say any of that. He was saying it. And it was just amazing to me that in that moment, it brought such a fear or a terror that he took his card back. And it wasn't a negative, moment. It was just like you could see that after he said, "This is heavy," it was so heavy. He felt, the weight of it to, I guess, to the crushing, and it was like, oh, yeah, well, this has been real. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'll see y'all when y'all come back. And yet, I still felt the urgency because I was going to go back on Thursday and realized I'll be traveling on Thursday. I told my husband, I said, we got to go back in and we have to let him know that we won't be coming on Thursday. So we did. We went back in and said, no, 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 I was wrong. Not this Thursday. So it'll have to be next week. And he said, not Thursday, but I said, Friday is good. We'll come in. He asked about the time and all of that. And he was like, oh, it have to be before 5. And I said, well, 12 o'clock is, he said 12 is perfect. So, even in his response, it was like, he was so nervous, like, well, if it ain't by this time, I'm looking forward to seeing him next week and seeing what kind of work the Father has done in him. Just understand that when you step into a space, the kingdom has come. And where the kingdom has come, then revealing is going to be done on many different levels. You just have to be, okay with the revelation of things when you step into spaces. Because sometimes people have a negative response. And so, well, what you're thinking is negative. And sometimes people have, sometimes people have a diabolic response and sometimes people have a divine response. I think that's better way to clarify that, because what we think is negative often is Yah moving us along into the next space and into the next phase of that season. So we love you today. I appreciate you. Listen, I got to go do something else for someone else I love. My grandson called me at the last minute and he needs some help. So I need to go make sure he's good. And I want you to know that you're blessed and don't forget it. And we'll see you guys next week. Of course, the Sabbath is changing. The new moon is on the 27th, so you count 7 days from there and you'll know when the next Sabbath is. And we'll see you there. I don't know. We might still be on destroying the gates of the gods. I don't know. I have so much more to say about this, and we're just doing it our way because this is the way the Father told us to do it. But there's so much more to discuss here. And maybe I'll bring some more leaders on next week too, just to share in this space with us, because I think there's such a great exchange on Genesis chapter 11. We love you. Listen, until the next time, be blessed. And I want you to remember that the body is not a me thing. It's a we thing. See you next week. Shalom, shalom.